Suddenly everyone's qualified to give advice about how to stop people pleasing. And I'm just gonna say right now, I am still a people pleaser. And I have no qualifications on giving you guys advice except for what's actually worked for me. And I promise you, it isn't just stop caring about what other people think, because it's just not something that automatically goes away overnight. And as someone who's been a people pleaser for a long time, I really just wanted to give you guys my raw advice on this, because one of my school community members was really talking about how they were struggling with people pleasing and overextending themselves. And honestly, me too. And I'm never gonna come on here and tell you guys something that I'm not personally going through. If you're new here, hi, my name's Natalie. This is the Improvement for Imbeciles podcast, where I share ways I'm getting my shit together so that you can get your shit together. If you guys are wondering why my voice sounds like this, my voice is slightly recovering from being sick. I feel like people pleaser has a very positive connotation. When you hear people pleaser, you tend to look at that person like, wow, like you're a really good person. And that's because obviously this person is a people pleaser, right? Like they just care so much about others. But I do want to talk about a manipulative aspect to people pleasing that unlocked in my brain the other day. I got this download. And people pleasing isn't just like being nice or considerate. It's valuing other people's needs and comfort over your own to an extent that it harms you. You neglect yourself because you believe that other people's needs are more important than your own. It's constantly saying yes to things that you don't want to do or that you know you need to say no to. It's over apologizing for something that isn't even your fault. It's exhausting yourself to make everyone else happy in your life except for you. And honestly, this is something I've been personally going through in my life. For example, last week, my oppa couldn't get out of his chair and he ended up having to go to the hospital. Luckily, they were able to get the situation handled and he is now in a care home where he's going through physical therapy in order to get back to normal. And during this time, I felt very overwhelmed with all of the different things I have going on. I'm a full-time university student. I'm currently living with my oppa right now, and when I wasn't home, that's when he couldn't get out of his chair. And so I also have to release YouTube videos for you guys because this is my income. And so I realized that I expend a lot of this energy on everything in my life, and I often neglect myself because working is kind of like a distraction from what is internally going on with me. In these moments where I look at all the things that I have going on, I think in my head, wow, I am doing so much, but this is a privilege to be doing this much. I am privileged to have my YouTube channel. I am privileged to be helping my oppa. I am privileged to be going to school. But there's this subsequent guilt that I am not doing enough for the people in my life. And I think the reason we become people pleasers is due to the way we grew up. I grew up with a mother who was very financially unstable. And so as I grew up, I started to see that, I don't have any brothers, right? If anything happened to my mom or my grandma on my mom's side, right, there are no men in order to help them and take care of them financially. It would be solely based on me and my sister. And this is the pressures that people have in their day-to-day life to cause them to be quote-unquote people pleasers. Is it your fault that there's people in your life you need to take care of? No. It is not your responsibility either. But that responsibility is often placed onto you if you grew up in a certain family structure. There was often guilt that was placed onto you from a very young age if you couldn't meet their expectations of you. Their needs and expectations of you mattered way more than your own expectations and the way you see yourself. And so although we shouldn't have to people please, sometimes we're put in situations in life where naturally we do because we care about our family. We care about the people in our life. We want to do these things for people, but do we have the mental energy to do it for them? Are we neglecting ourselves because we're so focused on helping other people that we forget to help ourselves? And so in this episode, I'm going to be talking from an adult's perspective of having expectations placed on you that are unfair and also very difficult to turn down, because that's the reality a lot of us live in. I'm also going to be giving you guys examples of advice I just feel doesn't work when it comes to people pleasing, and give you a how-to and how I am moving forward in being better at setting my own boundaries so that you can do the same exact thing. Without further ado, let's just get straight into the reality of people pleasing. A big realization I had about people pleasing a few months ago is that the reason we do this is because we want to feel safe. When we don't meet others' expectations, naturally, it makes us feel unsafe due to the way we've been conditioned. Now listen, this can be in a multitude of ways. It doesn't have to be just expectations placed on you. It might be emotional manipulation that you grew up with as well, that whenever you expressed your needs, you were met with resistance. This resistance was some type of punishment or denial of giving you love. When a baby cries, it's because it has a need that's not being satisfied. So, your mom picks you up, it feeds you some milk, and you go to bed. When it comes to physical needs, there's a trigger and there's a response, and there's a solution that is obviously available when your parent gives you the milk you need, right? But when it comes to your emotional needs, let's say you're trying to understand why you can't tie your shoes. You're very frustrated and your parent just tells you, "Are you stupid?" Naturally, you're going to be like, I am stupid. You're going to learn incompetence. And this learned incompetence is going to trickle into your entire personality. And so if you had a parent figure who never gave you the validation you needed, you naturally won't have a sense of self. Your sense of self is completely based on how other people get their needs satisfied by you. So for example, if you had an emotionally distressful parent, your parent would often make you feel really, really bad if you didn't do what they wanted. And so even if you didn't want to do it, you would just end up doing what your parent wanted you to do, whether that is comfort them, not go to a certain event, not do something that you wanted to do. You started to dim your own light. You are taught that your needs do not matter so heavily. And so as you grow older, you actually bring this coping mechanism of people pleasing into all of your relationships, even healthy ones. Even in relationships where people actually want the best for you, they want your needs to be satisfied. They want to not step over your boundaries. And what actually ends up happening is we end up pushing people who want the best for us away without even realizing we're doing it. For example, let's say your friend wants you to go to this Italian restaurant, but you can't have dairy. You are lactose intolerant. So obviously Italian restaurants have a lot of cheese and a lot of dairy in their dishes. You automatically say yes because you don't really want to be a burden. You just go to this Italian restaurant and you tell the waiter, "Hey, I don't want any cheese on my food." Now you're on your friend's time and she has limited time because she has to go into work at 3 o'clock. It's about 1 o'clock. The food comes out at 1:30 and your food has cheese on it. You sit and contemplate for a second, let me ask them to remake it, right? But then you realize, well, my friend has to go to work at 3 o'clock. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want us to have to wait at the restaurant for a long time. She has to leave in like 30 minutes. I'm just going to eat the food. It's fine. You eat like 3 or 4 bites of the food and your stomach really, really hurts. You end up spending $30 on this meal that you are not going to eat. You don't take the leftovers home because obviously it's going to make you sick. You say goodbye to your friend and in a hurry, you're rushing home. You end up having to stop at a 7-Eleven because you're so sick, you need to use the bathroom. It's just not a fun time. But you hide this. You don't tell this to your friend because this is a newer connection you made and you don't want to ruin it. You don't want to feel like that weird girl who always has to be picky with her food. You've been made fun of before because you're lactose intolerant and you don't want people to feel like, oh my God, why can't she ever have any good food? The next time that friend asks you to hang out, they ask you, "Hey, do you want to go to that same Italian spot? That spot was really good." And you're like, "Yeah, I love that spot. That was so good. Let's go." In reality, you're stressing. You're like, "I literally hate this Italian restaurant. I don't know why I just said yes." Subconsciously, your mind starts to associate this friend with this negative experience. Now, yes, consciously, you're aware that this person isn't responsible for your dairy issues. Your friend doesn't even know about your allergy. But a part of you is just wishing that this friend would suggest a different place to eat. So that way you don't have to tell them anything and you can keep it to yourself. The motivating force by why you continue to go to this restaurant with this friend is because you fear that their reaction to you having an issue with dairy will put you in an unsafe situation. And this is all going on subconsciously. That's why when you say yes, you're enthusiastic. You're not thinking that, oh, this is going to make me unsafe. You're just thinking, oh, well, I guess I'll just do what she wants because I don't want to make the situation situation uncomfortable. You know, I don't want to be that girl or that guy or that person. The only way your mind knows how to bring this to the surface is to start associating this person with the negative experience, which then makes you think, oh my God, like, why does this girl always want Italian food? A few weeks go by and the same exact thing happens. She asks, let's go to that Italian spot again.
Why do we have to go to Italian food?
What? I mean, we don't have to go to Italian food, it's fine.
Well, no, you always suggest Italian food, and it's just like kind of weird because it's like, I don't even like Italian food.
Whoa, sorry, I didn't know that you didn't like Italian food. Then you have to have this like awkward conversation where you have to explain to this person that, you know,
I have dairy issues and I'm lactose intolerant, and I was just going to this restaurant because you wanted to go to this restaurant, but I'm actually very uncomfortable.
This friend doesn't really know what to say, because not only are you hostile in your delivery, you also have just suppressed your needs for so long that they don't really know how to respond, because a lot of your frustration is not their fault. Now, you guys are still friends, but that situation really made them distance themselves from you because you didn't need to scream over Italian food. The result is you interpret this experience as nobody cares about my comfort. When I express my needs, nobody ever listens, so why do I even try? I'm gonna put the belief result cycle up on the screen. So your belief is actually nobody cares about my needs, and the result that happens actually makes you confirm that negative belief instead of looking into your own behavior. And so there's a part of people pleasing where if you're unaware, you can constantly feel like a victim. And this is one thing that nobody really talks about in these videos about people pleasing, because again, people pleasing is looked at as,
oh wow, you're just such a good person.
Nobody talks about the aspect of people pleasing where in all actuality, it's sometimes manipulative. It's manipulative because you assume that someone is meant to know about your needs without you having to express it. And I know it sucks. Right? It sucks that we have to communicate the way we feel and what we need to other people. I wish that people could just read our minds and show up the way that we want them to without us even having to say anything. I wish that too, because in all honesty, communicating is uncomfortable. And this is where we get into the talk about boundaries, because in all actuality, oftentimes people say boundaries is the solution for people pleasing. But I don't even think boundaries is really the solution. I believe that it's just expressing your needs. And while expressing your needs can be a boundary, when I was first delving into shadow work and, why I sacrificed myself for other people, I hated the word boundaries because it seemed like I had to face conflict. Every time I had to set a boundary, there was conflict involved. But for those out there who hate setting boundaries because you just don't want to have those uncomfortable conversations, it doesn't even have to be uncomfortable conversations. Expressing your need allows you to set up a boundary that's easier to set. Whereas in the example I just talked about, it was way more difficult for this person to set the boundary about their lactose intolerance because they didn't let this friend know their need. Sometimes all you need to do is just let people know who you are. And while that is scary for a people pleaser, if nobody knows who you are, they don't know how to show up for you either. If people don't know that you can't eat dairy, they're going to bring you to an Italian restaurant. If people don't know that you don't like to be hugged, they're going to hug you. If people don't know the little things that make you you, how are they actually developing a connection with you? They're not. The connections that you make in your life will purely be one-sided because you're only providing value to this person. This person doesn't know how to provide value to you because you never told them how to. And this is why people pleasers are often a magnet for narcissists, if we'd like to call them that. But there are people in this world who see someone's vulnerability, see someone's care that they provide others, see someone's empathy, and they are envious of it, right? They don't know how to be empathetic, and they will take that and use it. Whether consciously or unconsciously, you become a target for people who only want to use you for the benefits you provide to them. And the worst part is, you allow it. You are the one that's letting these people cross your boundaries. You are the one that's not communicating your needs to others. I want to show this TikTok that really encapsulates this idea of it's not that deep, and I feel like so many people pleasers will relate to this. So go ahead and roll the clip.
Well, if it's not that deep, then let it go. It's not that deep. Okay, so let it go. Well, I can't. So then it is deep. No, I'm deep in it, but it's not inherently that deep. What is that deep? Like deep enough to make it a whole thing. But it is a whole thing to you. But I don't want to be the person that makes it a whole thing. Well, it's certainly something. Yeah, so say something. No, it's fine. So then you gotta let it go. There is no secret third option. I can't let it go. Why not? Because I always let it go. And if I let this go, then I just become the person who always lets it go. It doesn't sound like you've ever let it go. Well, I've never said anything either. So where's it all going? Nowhere. You've just been letting it build up inside you. I guess so. But that's a whole thing. What is? You're gonna have a breakdown. Over what? Something. Why would I do that? Because all the some things are gonna add up to a whole thing. Well, if it is a whole thing, then I'll say something. Well, it'll be too late to say something by then. Then I'll let it go. But you can't let it go. Why not? Because it's already eating you up inside. That's why you're crashing out. But why would it eat at me? Because you deeped it. Well, if I deeped it, then it's deep. Well, which is it? It's not that deep.
Most boundaries just start on the basis of letting people know what you are and are not comfortable with. And a person who gets angry at your boundaries are the ones that were benefiting when you had none. And what I mean by offended by your boundaries is if this person is like,
oh my god, are you serious? That's a really dumb thing to think.
And they're like personally offended, personally attacked, I'd really start looking into if this person is healthy in your life. How often do they do that? There's a difference between people asking the reason, like I'm just asking, well, why do you have that boundary? You know, I've never heard of that. I think that some boundaries can be questioned if it's a new boundary you're introducing. For example, if in the past you let your friend borrow your clothes, but all of a sudden you really don't want this friend to borrow your clothes anymore because she left a stain on a shirt. She might ask to borrow your clothes and you're like, well, I don't really want to anymore. Sorry. And her reaction is, well, why don't you want to? You know, you let me use this last week, so why can't I use it again? That doesn't mean this person is automatically trying to use you, but do be aware and also be able to communicate your boundaries. And we'll get into how to reframe boundaries later on, but there's so many nuances to it. And the reason why I bring up these situations is because I've been in them as a people pleaser. And sometimes I've interpreted someone questioning a boundary of mine as them being in opposition to it, when in reality they were genuinely just asking out of curiosity. And one thing I notice as a people pleaser is sometimes I try to switch my boundaries because I was trying to gain something from the absence of it. In the absence of that boundary, I wanted your love, your attention, your patience, whatever thing I was expecting from you didn't get fulfilled. So all of a sudden, I'm revoking access to myself because that boundary was conditional and I was actually trying to get something out of you. And it was so subconscious that you don't even realize you're doing it when you're a people pleaser until you become aware of the actual reason you sacrifice yourself for others. You can't sacrifice yourself for others and expect other people to do the same and show up the same exact way for you if they never disclose that that's what they were going to do. And that sucks as a person who tends to give literally like all of myself in relationships, friendships, but it caused this like push and pull between people. And it actually confused people more than it did give them clarity on me because I never knew how to set boundaries based on what I felt comfortable with. I only knew how to set boundaries as a weapon. Girl, yes, we're taking it there today. Because I wanted to explore the entirety of the people pleaser, not just one specific aspect of you being a good person and I just do all these good things for people. Why? Because you want validation, because you want people to love you, because you want connections in your life. And listen, I get it. It's okay to want connections in your life. But just because you were manipulated, you cannot manipulate other people as a way to get your needs met. And the second that you become aware that you're starting to go into that paradigm, you need to acknowledge the ways in which you are manipulating others in your people-pleasing behavior. And one thing I grew up thinking as a chronic people pleaser is that my comfortability is negotiable, when in all actuality, the ways we find or identify certain discomforts we have are purely subconscious. Just as you know what makes you feel comfortable, like, curling up with that blanket you love, the shoes on your feet, the sensations around you, just as you know what sensations make you feel comfortable, it's the same way you know which ones make you feel uncomfortable. When you've been taught that your comfort is negotiable, your nervous system is actually dysregulated because of the trauma you've experienced throughout your life. The primary job of your nervous system is to maintain homeostasis by communicating your environment from your mind to the rest of your body. So physical sensations you feel, like let's say you're out in the forest and you see a bear. Naturally, as soon as you see the bear, your brain is going to release cortisol and adrenaline. All of a sudden, your heart starts racing really fast. There's goosebumps all over your body. You enter into into fight or flight. Now, what we're not taught in school about fight or flight is there's actually two different responses that we often go into that differ from fight or flight. So that is freeze or fawn. Now, freeze is you just stand there, you don't know what to do. And fawn is you actually try to please the bear. You give the bear your lunch in hopes that it's not about to eat you. In the modern world, the stresses we experience are often non-life-threatening, yet our brain still releases those stress-inducing chemicals during moments we've been conditioned to fear in our lives. These can be things like public perception, humiliation, being isolated from a group. Essentially, all of the reasons we've been taught to put other people's opinions of ourselves over our own. If you're a people pleaser, oftentimes you're stuck in the fawn response. And so, as I was saying, this is purely a subconscious response. Just as you know what makes you feel comfortable versus what makes you feel uncomfortable, the response that you give to discomfort is purely taught based on your environment growing up. So essentially, when you've been taught that your comfort is negotiable, you'll constantly try to negotiate it in order to gain approval. Essentially, it's a second nature response to say yes to something you don't want to do, and then complain about the fact that you don't want to do it. That's actually normal. But in those moments, we agree to someone out of habit. Something I've noticed is that we kind of place them on some sort of pedestal in a way. Like, for example, a boss asking you to do a project that's above your pay grade. Naturally, you want to say yes, but you don't really know how to say, hey, so this isn't in my job description. I'm sorry. But you don't want to come off as a burden. You don't want to seem greedy. You don't want to seem selfish. So you just end up saying yes to this project and taking it on without recognizing that you should be fairly compensated. And so something I've found really helpful is to ask myself if this person is being placed on a pedestal and what that pedestal is. Do they have some sort of power over me? And this might just be something where you mentally place them higher than you because, again, you want to learn from them. You think of them very highly. They might even be someone where you want to be a lot more like them. Sometimes as people pleasers, we'll also adopt other people's personalities because we tend to not have a sense of self. Our sense of self is based on what other people think about us. So when we latch onto someone who we really like their personality, we'll start to act like them despite the fact that we've never talked like that before. We've never worn those type of clothing before. We've never acted in this type of way before. It's very difficult for us to maintain a sense of self. Now that I've really dissected what every single little people-pleasing experience is, because I've been through all of them, I had to go deep into it because if I'm going to talk about this subject, I'm going to hit on everything. I'm going to give some critiques to some YouTubers. I've never done this before. I don't want to diss on people, but I want to give some critiques on some advice that I see circulating the internet. Video number 1.
I see you living in fear, and I see you not using your whole potential because you care about what anyone out there is thinking about you. And I want you to stop, okay? Because it makes me incredibly angry to see how you are keeping yourself so small for people who don't even want to like you.
Okay, so this approach might be very motivating to some people, but I'm gonna reiterate basically what this person said. You shouldn't care about what other people think, you should actually care about what I think, and what you're doing, caring about what other people think, is actually making me angry, so you should stop doing it. While these videos might be really motivating to people, they are kind of like a band-aid. Right? It doesn't actually heal the wound underneath, especially if you really need stitches. You really need to uncover the reason why you people please. Telling people to just stop caring about other people's opinions is genuinely ineffective due to all the reasons I've listed in this video. That, and oftentimes we're never fully going to be able to get rid of this people-pleasing part of ourselves. We're only going to have habits that we implement in our life to kind of act as a checks and balance system to make sure that we're prioritizing ourselves and making space for what really matters to us. When you have a big heart, you naturally want to care for other people. You naturally want to go out of your way for family members, people in your life that are struggling, but making sure you take space for yourself has been something that really has helped me. However, if you've spent years, even decades, caring about what other people think about you so much to where it's at the expense of yourself, just setting boundaries or telling people to just relax doesn't work. That is exactly why I created the Get Your Shit Together community. It's a community of people who share their experiences in getting their shit together so that you can too. Because the truth is, we're all a work in progress. I actually just released a 7-day confidence challenge that provides you with a video workshop and actionable worksheet every single day to help you dive into both the internal and external work that confidence requires. True confidence is shadow work based, meaning you'll be uncovering the parts of yourself that cause people pleasing and fawning. This will help you move forward in your truth and stop people pleasing. You'll also get access to a private Discord with me where I can help you with any of your questions as it pertains to confidence and any of my other challenges on the community. And the community itself is free to join, so go check it out. And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe and like this video, that way more people pleasers can see it. Okay, let's get back into the video. You must first start caring about yourself and showing up for yourself. There are so many videos online that glorify this self-centered ideology of hyper-individualism and, I just don't care about what other people think because you're a loser and I'm better than you. That is a band-aid for a way deeper issue. While the people who are talking super negatively about you most likely are losers, there's also a different perspective that you're not seeing. And that is the desire for you to not care is the manifestation of turning into the people who hurt you. The desire you have to just not care about what other people think about you is actually the manifestation of trying to turn into the people who have hurt you. Because the same people who hurt you by judging you, by excluding you, by making you feel this need to people please and constantly be of use to others, is actually you not having the capacity to care for yourself and care about what your personal opinion is. Now, I do believe that there is a possibility where you can genuinely not care about what other people think about you and only care about yourself, but I do think this causes a very fragile ego that is self-serving and doesn't actually experience the joys of what it's like to love someone and have them love you back, to care about a project or a team at work and then get them to the next level. Not caring about other people is not the solution to feeling like you have to people please, but it's the only one that's feasible for people who have been hurt so badly by others that they lose all faith in humanity.
Why do I care so much when all people do is step on me?
That is the mentality you'll start to have when you've been hurt so badly by others to where you're never going to care for someone, you're never going to go out of your way for anyone, and you're going to isolate yourself. And I'm saying this because I've been in that exact position. I've isolated myself from people pleasing because I assume the opposite of people pleasing is not giving a fuck and just focusing on myself. That is unhealthy. What will happen is since you don't have a base of caring for yourself, you lose your entire identity because your entire identity has been caring about what other people think about you. So now you're depressed, you don't know who you are, and you hate everyone around you. And you end up hating the people who know themselves. You will turn into exactly the person who hurt you. You have been taught to believe you can't have both. You can't have a sustainable sense of self and care about what other people think about you. That's not true. I still care about public opinion somewhat. But do I have it as the center of my life? For example, these people who tell you to just stop caring online, they're posting on the internet because secretly the internet is fueling their ego. It's making them feel good about themselves. Their accomplishments are based on how many likes and views they get. And while their sense of self might be really, really high, there is a part of them that knows they are marketing themselves to you. I am here marketing myself to you. And there becomes this parasocial relationship between fueling your ego and posting on the internet. And this is what I've realized in my own journey online. I would post certain things only for likes and validation, but not actually believe in what I was saying. Now, my content is centered around something I actually believe, so I don't care who comments on my feed, this is stupid, why is she talking about this, whatever. I don't care about anything because their opinion is irrelevant. This is my truth. Now, do I care if my supporters share feedback on how I can improve my videos? Of course. I love feedback on things you'd want me to talk about. I love being engaged with my community because I want to help you just as much as you guys help me. Do I somewhat care about public perception in a professional environment? Absolutely. At my university, sometimes I fear sharing with people that I have a YouTube channel, but I had to realize that this is who I am. And if they don't accept who I am, that's honestly not my problem. I'm gonna be me at the end of the day, whether they're in my life or not in my life, whether I get that job, whether I don't get that job, whether people subscribe to me, whether people don't subscribe to me. And that doesn't mean I don't care. That means I redirected the care into something else. But what actually helped me wasn't like grand declarations of like, I don't give a fuck. What has helped me is, number one, starting with low stakes situations. When you've been taught to center others, you need to start small by centering yourself in the ways that are very minuscule. Advocating for yourself in moments where you don't want to go to an Italian restaurant, you don't want to watch that movie, you don't want to go to that event. Ask yourself, am I doing it for them or am I doing it for me? A great way to practice this is baristas, right? If someone gives you the wrong drink, being able to go up and say, hey, so this was made wrong, is an extremely big step, even if you feel like you're inconveniencing this person. Number two, use the pause technique. In moments when someone asks you for something and you reactively want to just say yes, I've learned to say, let me check my schedule and get back to you. This not only gives you respect because people realize that your time is valuable. If you say yes to every single little thing someone asks you to go to, it's going to seem like you just don't have that much going on. Naturally, people are going to start asking you for rides. Can you pick me up from here? Can you do this for me? Because you're not busy. You're not having anything in your life that is prioritized over this person or situation. This tiny buffer space gives me time to ask myself, what am I thinking and what am I feeling? Do I really want to do this thing? You are in no way obligated to this person. And if your friends are going to get mad at you for saying no to going to a certain event, sometimes you have to find out that they're not your friends. But most of the time, you're proven wrong. Your friends are completely fine with it. Okay, we'll see you at the next one. It's not that big of a deal because they genuinely care about you. Number three is to script responses in advance. This is something that really helped me when having conversations like, for example, quitting my job. I remember when I quit my first job, I was so nervous. I was like, oh my God, like not me quitting my job. I thought I would get some really bad reaction from my boss. And so I scripted basically what I was gonna say. And having that response gave me the courage that I'm valid in standing up for myself and also advocating for myself. I literally would write down scripts like, that doesn't work for me. Can we do this instead? Are we still on for this day? That way I knew exactly what to expect and also knew what to say in those situations because it's really difficult to be put on the spot. You can sometimes enter into freeze, and giving yourself that buffer period to prepare really helps me. That brings me into number 4. Detach from outcome. If you don't want to do something and you know you need to communicate it, tell yourself whether this happens or not, I'm gonna be okay. Whether they do or don't like me, I'm gonna be okay. Whether they respond nice or not nice, I'm gonna be okay. Affirming this to yourself affirms that you are making the decision that is best for you in any circumstance, regardless of what other people have to say about it. Number 5 is to recognize the physical sensation. I noticed for me, I get this like knot in my stomach when I have to set a boundary. My heart will start beating and I'll start getting really sweaty. I don't know. I just get really nervous, and when I'm about to people please, sometimes I feel this back and forth, which is very common with me. Like I'll say yes to something and I'll be like, well, I have to do this and I have to do that. And that actually makes people more confused. Like, is the answer yes or no? Can you do it or not? But even just giving myself a moment to pause and saying, I'm sorry, just give me a second, and evaluating with yourself if this is something you want to do helps me so much in those situations because I notice it in my body before I consciously am aware that I'm about to people please. You might notice that you have certain tendencies you do in those moments. Being aware of the physical sensations in your body can help you bring yourself back to center, because when you're focused on everyone else, you're genuinely not in your body. You're more worried about what other people are thinking and feeling, and that's what I mean by don't stop giving a fuck. Redirect where you're giving your fuck. Like, physically go, oh my God, I'm literally focused on everyone else except for myself right now. Let me bring myself back to center. Last but not least, realize that you are not selfish. You are not selfish for putting yourself first. It is your time at the end of the day. Sometimes we are giving our time away to other people, so much so that we forget that it's our lives. It is your life. you are not being selfish with the decisions that involve your time and energy. And when people start to act entitled, take a mental note. Accept people as they are and place them where they belong in your life. A final reality check is sometimes setting boundaries will elicit negative response. Some people have unfortunately mistaken your kindness for weakness, and that's one thing you have to face head on if you are going to actually let go of people-pleasing behaviors. Recently, I've had to have a few conversations telling people what I can and can't tolerate, and that's been really difficult for me. I also can only do so much. I can only be under so much stress. And giving myself the space to recognize that I am valid in my boundary, whether people react well or not, has really helped me in just standing my ground. With that being said, you guys, thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Improvement for Imbeciles podcast. Go check out the Get Your Shit Together community. I love you guys so much. Be sure to do all the things, and I'll see you guys next week.